everybody from Carolina Pharmacy. I am your host today, Josh Kent, co-founder of the Cannabis Pharmacy Network. Thank you very much for your staff joining us today. I have the pleasure of kind of introducing Cannabis Pharmacy and doing a staff training with Carolina Pharmacy Group out of South Carolina and North Carolina. They're one of our largest groups that we work with, and they've done a fantastic job at selling their CBD products and helping their patients have success with these products. And so thank you to the staff for taking time today to listen to a small training. We're going to power pack in a bunch of information. There's tons more to share. As we're getting a few other folks that are coming in from the training, we'll bring those in. But want everybody to know, first and foremost, that Cannabis Pharmacy, the biggest thing we offer is the support and the education. I put my cell phone number down in the chat area there, and I mean it. Pick up the cell phone and call me. If you got questions, if somebody's in the pharmacy, you want to learn more, you want to schedule an additional training, just know that we're here for you at whatever level of training and information you desire. I do have some questions, but I want to kind of just kick off and go through just a few set things that I think will be important for anybody who's new to the space, or maybe somebody who's taken and had some success with these products. Some of this information you'll know, some of it may or may not be so important, but I think for me and for us, it's important for the information that we cover for everybody to know. So just a little bit about who you're talking to. So again, my name is Josh Kent. Me and my brother Steve, we started this business back in 2017. Many of the folks from Carolina Pharmacy have worked with us for a number of years. We're a family-based business out of Charleston, South Carolina. We operate in over 700 community pharmacies, just like you guys. And so our main purpose every day when we wake up and come in is to support you through having access to over 500 products, to having access to education and samples. And we ask, folks to participate with our program with. And so for the past 7 years, we have really worked hard to support you pharmacists and to help you be able to give your patients an accurate suggestion and point them in the right direction for results. And so a lot of the conversation we'll have today really is about making sure that when the patient comes in, we ask them the right questions, we get them pointed in the right direction, we get them the right suggestion of use based off of what we've experienced success with before, and then following up with them to make sure that they're getting the response that they're looking for, okay? So feel free to put your questions in the chat group here as we go along today. So I want to just take it real quick down to the basic level of where these products come from. Many people don't know before it gets in that bottle on the shelf, how it got there. And I'm going to give you just a real quick rundown on how that works, okay? And so when these products are grown, they're grown from thousands of farms all over the country. A lot of it is grown in Kentucky. They've taken the old tobacco farms and they've converted them to cannabis farms. So a giant portion of the CBD products that come from hemp plants are grown in Kentucky and all over the country as well. But they take lots of different farms, lots of different plants, hemp plants, and they take them and they dry them. And then what they do is they grind them up and then they put them on these big cookie sheets and they actually put them into these big baker's ovens and they do what they call decarboxylate. And so if you were to just eat raw cannabis, it wouldn't do anything for you, right? You actually have to heat it up to a certain temperature to activate the cannabinoids, okay? And so once they've done that, they take it out, they put it in these big cylinders, these big extraction machines, very much like they extract olive oil. And a lot of the different products that we consume, same machinery, same type of factory, but they put the hemp in there and out the bottom comes raw CBD and THC extract, okay? It kind of looks like mustard in a lot of situations, okay? And so now that is primarily CBD and Delta-9 THC. There's some other traces of some other cannabinoids in there, but CBD and Delta-9 THC are the most abundant part of the plant, okay? And a lot of people ask, what's the difference between marijuana and CBD or marijuana and hemp, okay? So in California, where they grow marijuana, that is a high THC plant with low levels of CBD. They're growing intentionally to be high in THC because they make THC products from them. Their state allows them to grow those products within the state. Now, hemp, the federal government has allowed us to grow, which says it has to be low levels of THC, high levels of CBD. So if you were to go to one of the farms where these products were grown and saw a marijuana plant or a hemp plant, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two. They look identical, okay? Only once you discover what's inside of them and what's most abundant allows you to understand this is a hemp plant. It is under 0.3% Delta-9. You'll hear me say that several times through the training today. that 0.3% Delta 9 is what the federal government says these plants and these products have to be under in order for them to be legal. And so every product that we carry here at the Cannabis Pharmacy, 500 and growing, are all derived from hemp, and they're all less than 0.3% Delta 9. We take it several steps further. The manufacturers that we work with put a QR code with a lot number and an expiration date. This is so that you can easily access the full certificate of analysis that not only tests for the cannabinoid content, but tests for heavy metals, pesticides, residual solvents, products. We don't want products to have those types of contaminants in them. So we want to make sure that we're not offering those to our patients. Okay. So we're very thorough with any of the manufacturers and companies that we bring on to make sure that they're not only compliant in the state, but that they're actually test well, that we're not actually giving somebody an impure product. Okay. So once they've taken that raw goop, they now take that raw goop and they make all 500 products that we have in this warehouse out of it, right? Some of them are for sleep, some of them for pain, some of them for anxiety, but it's all the same raw basic ingredients. Okay. And so not saying they're all the same, but saying that when a patient comes into the pharmacy, the number one question we want to ask them is, are you subject to a drug test? This really helps us identify which part of the shelf and which products that we're going to recommend for the patient. Okay. And so when a patient comes in and says they are subject to a blood or urine screening by their doctor or by their employer, then we want to make sure that they're taking tested THC-free products, which we do have a selection of. If they're not, then most of those patients are coming in for pain or for sleep or anxiety are the three main takes, okay? And they're looking for something to take as an alternative. And so depending on the level of experience that they have, how much THC they've tried or consumed in the past, we will kind of walk them down which one of those THC products is the best for them. And we'll get a little bit into that later. But understanding that each of the products that we offer is a different strength, a different flavor, a different set of cannabinoids, everything kind of with similar ingredients, but with added ingredients that help kind of resolve those issues. So a very entry-level product when people come to the pharmacy and say, hey, my doctor recommended this for me. I've never tried it before. I have pain. What do you recommend? We typically will recommend a topical for those folks because you can rub it on immediately and feel relief for 2 to 4 hours, okay? That's a very entry-level product where pain patients can experience relief by trying one of these products. And so if they come in and they're saying, hey, I've tried a pain cream, that's great, but I'd really like to take something a little bit stronger that may last a little bit more orally, what we recommend for them is a THC edible, okay, based off of their experience. And so we'll get into a little bit of that here in just a few minutes about which product to recommend for which person, okay? So we'll move on to the next topic, which is the different types of cannabis and cannabinoids. What you're going to hear a lot of people ask is, what's the difference between Delta 8 and Delta 9, okay? And so I'll give a quick explanation on that. It's probably the number one question that we get asked. We'll talk a little bit about compliance and the legislation after that. So as I mentioned previously, Delta 9 THC is the active ingredient in medical marijuana. It is the most abundant cannabinoid that's in the plant that we will pull out of a cannabis plant. And once we take that cannabinoid, we make Delta 9 products out of it. The federal government says you have to have less than 0.3% based on the dried weight of Delta 9. And so you can have a 5-gram gummy can have up to 10 milligrams of Delta 9 THC and be compliant. And so a lot of people say, well, how do you sell, THC in South Carolina or North Carolina or any of the states where there's still not legislation? And it's because the Farm Bill specifically says if it's derived from hemp, it's under 0.3% Delta 9 on dried weight, that it's compliant. And so you'll go into the pharmacies and one of the selections of THC products will be a Delta 9 gummy, okay? That's no different than the same gummy that you would get in a dispensary in Colorado, okay? The same exact active ingredient, the same molecule, okay? We're just regulated by the dosage. You would find a 25 or 50 or 100 milligram there versus the 10 milligram here. So Delta 8, well, where does Delta 8 come from? Delta 8 is very much like Delta 9. I think of them as like brother and sister, okay? If you took 10 milligrams of Delta 8 and 10 milligrams of Delta 9, you should get about the same feeling. The difference is that Delta 8 is naturally occurring within the cannabis plant, but not enough of it to just extract out directly. And so what they do is they extract that CBD out and they convert that CBD to Delta 8. Very similar process that we do with a lot of other medicines and formulations in the industry. Now, the reason Delta 8 became popular is because there's no rule that says how much Delta 8 you can put inside the gummy. There's very specific rule to how much Delta 9 you can put in the gummy. And so Delta 8 gummies will typically be 25, 50, or 100 milligrams. These are really only for chronic condition patients, people that come in that are taking 25, 50, or 100 or more milligrams of THC to combat what they have going on. I mean, there's a lot of patients that work in our pharmacies that have serious chronic conditions that are taking strong doses of Ambien or Oxycontin or fentanyl patches or things that they're just trying to get away from with their pain. And some of those patients do require a higher amount of THC. And so the real big difference here is that they're very similar in strength. Delta 8 is synthetically made from the CBD, and there's no limit to how much Delta 8 we can put in the product. And so when you walk into one of the pharmacies, you're going to have 4 different types of THC. Types meaning blends or strength. Newbie, or I call a beginner, somebody who's never tried THC before. When they come into the pharmacy, we ask them the same question. Are you subject to a drug test? No. Have you ever tried cannabis before? No. We're going to start that patient out with a very low dosage of Delta 9, typically 5 milligrams. And then they're going to have a combination blend of THC in that gummy. Okay, so Green Roads is one of the main companies we recommend for the pharmacy patients, as it was founded by a pharmacist. And so that product has 5 milligrams of Delta 9 THC and 20 milligrams of CBD. That's going to be a beginner product to give to a patient, and still recommend them to start with half. Okay, I'd rather you take half, not feel anything, than take too much and it be an uncomfortable feeling. And if that ever does happen, if there's one thing you take away from the training today, is if somebody ever takes too much THC, you want to administer CBD, 50 to 100 milligrams or more of CBD, to actually help counteract that intoxication or that drowsiness that comes. And that's why the Delta 9 product gummy that is blended with the CBD has the least amount of side effect of drowsiness and intoxication that comes from taking a THC gummy. Now, if somebody comes in and says, hey, I've used cannabis before, I'm familiar with it, it really helped my pain, it really helped my sleep, those patients are going to get a straight THC product traditionally. So it'll be 5 to 10 to 15 milligrams of Delta 9. Okay, that's because they're familiar with the feeling it gives them. They understand it, they don't mind it, and that's okay. Okay, those are intermediate people, we'll call them, right? And then there's your patient that comes in and says, hey, I'm a cannabis consumer every day. I have been for 20 years. I take 50 milligrams of edibles and it really helps my back pain. That's the patient that we give the higher dosages of THC to, and only them. Okay, one of the biggest things we don't want to do is have a new patient come in that's never tried these products before, take too much THC, not have a great result, and then therefore, they didn't get what we were looking for them to get, which was pain relief or sleep relief or something along that. Okay. I will say, with that being said, when you go into the pharmacy or you go to the website, or if you're selling any other brands, you got to make sure that these packages are clearly labeled. And all of the products will say Delta 9 or Delta 8 and milligrammage. And so it's up to us, up to you guys, pharmacists, technicians, right, to make sure that we're starting low and working our way up. Okay. Many people will take between 5 and 10 milligrams of THC, and that's perfect for them. And so if you haven't yet, take a look at some of the products that you're offering in the pharmacy. Get familiar with the ones that have the blends of THC, the ones that have just straight THC, the low dose, and then ones that have the higher dosage. Okay. One of the questions that we did get asked was, how long do these effects last? So it can take up to 2 hours for an edible to take full effect. Okay. So one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they'll take half and then they'll wait 1 hour and they're like, I don't feel anything. And then they'll take the other half and it may be too much. Right. And so I always tell people, wait up to 2 hours, and they can last 4 to 6 hours. Some people are super sensitive, right? The idea of taking an edible gummy, before bed, is that it does last 4 to 6 hours so that you can actually get a great night's sleep. A lot of people will smoke cannabis to help them fall asleep and to stay asleep, but that only lasts for 30 minutes to an hour and a half, right? And so when you take an edible A lot of times I will help people get to sleep and stay asleep. For people that are trying CBD and or THC for the first time, many of them are not believers, I like to say. They have never had success with one of these products. And so they're looking to be made believers. And so for many people, including myself, sleep like crap. And so when I take an edible before I go to bed, every single time I sleep better. Nights like last night when I didn't take one, I woke up, I was like, man, why didn't I take my gummy last night? Right. And so for most first time consumers, I recommend to them to say, hey, try this an hour before bed, because 9 times out of 9, they come back and say, hey, I slept better. And if somebody gets a good night's sleep, it does all kinds of wonderful things for them, but it also makes them a believer, right? Somebody says, okay, this actually does work. It's not just taboo. Okay. So one of the questions that we did get asked to was, will CBD products cause anxiety? No. So any product that is CBD only should not cause drowsiness, should not cause anxiety, should have no side effects of any negative circumstance for them. If I probably say the one negative side effect that we may hear from people is they feel relaxed, or some people want to take a nap, right? And so if that happens, then you'll want to take less. When we'll talk a little bit about dosage. So when a patient comes into the pharmacy, we ask them whether they're subject to the drug test. We already talked about which type of THC to recommend. Most folks start with 5 milligrams to 10 milligrams. If they're a patient that's subject to that drug test, or if they're wanting to take an oral regimen daily, most patients will take 25 to 50 milligrams of CBD twice daily. It's kind of like a blanket statement, but it's a very entry-level dosage to an oral supplement. And so every day when I come into work, I take 2 of my capsules. Every night when I go home, I take 2 of my capsules. I still eat my edibles when I have pain or when I have sleep, but one of the first steps in using a cannabis program is taking a full spectrum rich CBD regimen every day. I take 100 in the morning and 100 in the evening. That's my personal regimen. So many people have come back to us after taking 25 to 50 milligrams or more twice daily under the tongue or through a capsule consistently for 2 weeks or longer, will come back to us with tons of success stories of, I've reduced taking this medicine. I was able to go play tennis this week. One of the girls, I bent down to pick up my newspaper, right? And so the small little subtle things that people can realize that they're getting relief from is by taking a daily regimen. One of the things I try to explain to people, why CBD, why THC, the way we try to teach is, look at the CBD as the anti-inflammatory. You're going to take it every single day. It's going to help reduce inflammation. Okay. It knows where to go. It knows where you're inflamed. The THC is going to be the part for the pain, for the sleep. It's going to work more rapidly and quickly. And so many patients will take a combination of both. And if you walked into the pharmacy and said, hey, I don't sleep good and I've got pain, tell me the best 3 products to send me home with. I'm going to send you home with a tincture or a capsule of CBD that you're going to take every day, morning and night. I'm going to send you home with a topical that you can rub on and get immediate relief as needed. And then I'm going to give you some sort of strength of THC gummy based off of what you tell me, whether you're new, whether you tried it before, you're experienced, right? And then you're going to leave out of there with a gummy that you take before bed or as needed for pain. You're going to rub that topical on as needed for pain. And then you're going to take your CBD every day, right? That would be the best 3 items to send a patient out of the pharmacy with for the best results. I don't see someone else trying to get into the training. So we'll talk about compliance and legalities. So North Carolina specifically, I know that Carolina Pharmacy has a few pharmacies in North Carolina. We won't go too deep into detail, but every state has made some sort of regulation on hemp products. North Carolina specifically just passed a bill that is going to require, like many of the other states, to have certain testing requirements. COAs have to be displayed and reached by the product, a chain of custody of those, making sure that certain contaminants are not in the products. They've also imposed a tax or some sort of a fee that they will charge the stores that carry these products. But at the end of the day, it very clearly represents that THC, Delta 9, and Delta 8 are legal. For a while there was a little bit of a gray area where some of the pharmacists weren't sure, specifically in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia, whether or not Delta 8 or Delta 9 was legal. It's a big question that we get. But the bill, if anybody wants to read it, we have access to it. Look it up. It's available in your state. But it clearly defines what is and what is not legal when you're looking at these products. Let's see, we covered that one. So we covered that one. Budget. Love that. Love the budget question. So a lot of the products that we offer are sold in a 10 count package and a 30 count and a 60 count, right? Or sample size products we have available too. And that's because a lot of times the patients want to try it. They want to see it work for them. They want to come back and buy the larger product. And so most of the products, I'd say 75% of the products are under $40. Back when we started several years ago, these products were much more expensive. And there are some brands on the market that are still very expensive, but for most of the patients, they're spending between $20 and $40. We found that through our metrics that the 45 to 65-year-old female is our number one shopper. Those are the people that are purchasing these products the most out of what we're seeing. And so budget is very much played into, how much money you make per month, whether you want to commit to spending $40 or $50 on a product to try it for the first time. And so at the end of the day, we always make sure to have a large selection of smaller price line items. And that's why the samples are so important too for a lot of the pharmacies that participate in our sample program, which is, essentially just getting some samples at your cost and identifying some of those patients that are taking those certain medications and kind of pulling them to the side, giving them a sample for free, and then helping them understand that these products are a solution for them. Let's see here, different brands on the market. Does anybody have any particular questions? I don't see any questions here in the chat group. Does anybody have a question that they want to cover? I know we're getting close to our 30-minute time here. I believe we covered most of the questions. I see one more question here. What's the difference between Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10? I didn't cover the Delta 10, but anything that's Delta is going to be a THC product. They're all almost the same. They're all just synthetic. Delta 9 is I call it the real stuff. When you get those smokers, they're like, oh, I got the real stuff at home. I'm like, well, that's Delta 9. And I have to educate a lot of folks that don't realize that when you roll marijuana and you smoke it, you are burning Delta 9. And that is what is the active ingredient in medical cannabis. So I see one of the questions is, what is the best milligram to start a patient for topical? So the topicals are very, very similar. The difference in the topicals we'll discuss. And so like my dad, he likes the hot. It's got that capsaicin, that Bengay feeling. It kind of opens up the pores. You feel that heat, right? He loves that. My mom hates it. She hates it. She likes the cool, the menthol, the camphor. And so when you look at a topical product, it's not so much the milligram, because all of the topicals are typically between 750 milligrams and 3,000 milligrams. The only difference there being you use less, it lasts a little bit longer as far as the strength goes. But as far as efficacy of, squirting some in your hand and or applying them, they're all very, very similar. But I will say it's more about the preference of the patient to application and budget. And so like my grandma, she loves the balm. She doesn't like to put the cream in her hands and rub it in. She likes to get the salve and she kind of rubs it into her skin from the balm. And so it'll come in like a balm fashion. It'll come in the hot or cool fashion. And then it'll actually come in a pump fashion, because some people that have the arthritis, they want to be able to rub it into their joints. And so when it comes to topicals or in general, CBD, you can't really take too much CBD. What I recommend for most people is just apply a little bit of that topical in a small area just to kind of get it massaged in really well. And then I'll tell you, I've made a lot of believers out of the topical products and really help them get confident in trying an oral, product or to trying gummy, because they kind of get the believing that it's working for them. Give me a couple other questions as we're wrapping up here. I feel like I covered most of the stuff that I wanted to cover with you guys today. I will say that, there's always questions for these products. You're going to get somebody that walks into the pharmacy tomorrow. Save my cell phone number, save my email address. If you want to get some additional one-on-one training, product-specific training where we go through some of the products in detail, the ingredients, some of the successful dosages we've seen with people. We have tons of stories to tell. We've been in the pharmacy working with your patients firsthand for so many years that we've really kind of figured out what works and what doesn't work. And, Chirag and the Carolina Pharmacy Group has done a fantastic job of stocking the product we recommend and, talking to the patients and doing everything there. So you guys, keep doing what you're doing and being a star pharmacy. I wish more of our pharmacies are like you guys, but certainly utilize the brochure as a resource for you for people that want to get more information. Make sure your stores have the signage up and your display case has got everything in it, and recommend it to the patients. For a lot of the pharmacies we talk to, they're like, Josh, how can we grow our program? It's give samples out, talk to your patients about it. When you give a patient something, say, hey, come back, let me know how it worked for you. Help build your success stories and you get more confident in recommending the product. And in a lot of pharmacies, they'll recommend one particular product that probably worked for them or a loved one. And then when somebody comes in and says, "Hey, what do you got for arthritis?" It's like, "Hey, that arthritis roll on right there. They recommend it every time, right? We know it works." I will say a small note: if you do get a topical or roll on, make sure to shake them very well. They do have a lot of ingredients in them. If they sit for a while, they can kind of separate a little bit. So that is something that I would recommend. But any other questions before we get out of here? Anybody in the group, feel free to put it in the chat. If not, thank you so much for kind of joining today. I think we kept it under 30 minutes. And if I didn't cover something that you have questions for, email me, call me, text me. We do have samples on our website too. I do know that all pharmacists and medical professionals that work with us get 30% off of those products. So you can always feel free to try some of those products for yourself or your loved ones. And if you want to try something yourself as a sample, just give me a call. You've got my cell phone number. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time today to kind of do this recording and share with some of our other pharmacists and techs out there some of the information that we're sharing here at the Cannabis Pharmacy. And we're excited about helping support all pharmacists out there. And any questions that you have and any support that you need, we're just one phone call away. You can always visit us at cannabispharmacy.com and give us a call. Thank you so much for everybody joining today. Thank you, Carolina Pharmacy, for being an awesome pharmacy group. And we look forward to doing some more of these trainings. Thanks so much. See you next time.